Hi. I recently finished my Roubo workbench and I just wanted to get it on film and talk about some of the features in case anyone else wanted to build one. So here we go. So I tried to be as traditional as possible. I've got a traditional tail vise here. I got a wood screw, and I am going to make a separate video for my vices. I'm actually going to disassemble this so you can see how it goes together. My bench is made out of Douglas fir. It's reclaimed Doug fir from an old house built probably in the 30s. And when we demoed it, I just couldn't throw the wood away. It had no knots in it. It was air dried. It was rough cut, but you run it through the planer, and it turned out to be really nice material. So at any rate, I finally found a project for it. So here we go. It's please don't look too carefully at the bench. I've spilt so much stuff on my bench top. I ended up starting this bench probably 2 or more years ago. We got really busy and I didn't get the opportunity to finish it, and I built a multitude of projects, spilled paint, gasoline, oil, you name it, from tool repair and just different construction projects. And so I gave the surface a bit of a sanding, but it still doesn't look that great. Nevertheless, here it is. So, here's my end cap's dovetailed in. It's through bolted, and I drilled a hole and relieved, and so these are machine bolts. They're not lag bolts holding this end cap on. And if you come around, you can see my legs are dovetailed up. So it's really a rigid, one-piece sort of bench. And so it doesn't move around at all when you're working on it. I'd say one of the negatives is it's also very awkward and it's heavy. It makes it difficult to move around. And so if someone was going to do this, you might take a look at the Morovian workbench, which is held in place with some thick wedges, and that to me seemed like a pretty cool idea. I like this bench a lot though. So my legs are made out of clear Doug fir. Like I said, no knots. They're 2 pieces of 2x4s lammed together here, and they're mortised and tenon in, and they're pinned and drawboard. So when you drive that pin in, it actually sucks the joint together, so I didn't need to clamp it. So this was built as one piece, the other one as well, drawboard together, and then my stretchers are also mortised in and drawboard in. And so when you pound all that together with the pins, it's really quite sturdy, and you can see the glue squish out if you're careful and you do a good job. And so my end caps here are dovetailed, and I also pin them into the bench top. And you come around, you can see my other end cap. And I have a leg vise also with a wooden screw that I made, and like I said, I'm going to do a separate video on that. And if you look at the Morovian workbench, it actually has an angled leg, and the vise you can do it on an angle too, which I thought was pretty cool. Something you might want to look at. One thing I would do differently, I was so kind of wrapped up in the traditional. The tail vise I'm super happy with. I wouldn't change a thing. I would not do a wagon vise. I'm very happy with it. It really has no vise hardware. It's all made in the shop, and I'll show you that later. But as far as the leg vise, I would probably do like one of those scissor style pinless parallel guides, because it just becomes tedious having the pin. I know if you're kind of a traditionalist, you're thinking I want to do it old school, but if you're working on something that's maybe rectangular, you're going to flip it over to the wider side, you got to get down there, try and find the right pin. And if you're really just trying to get the job done, you don't have time for that. You just want to move forward, and you're happy for your work hold, but having to adjust the pin becomes tedious. So I did this setup on the side with my stretchers. You can see that I set this up for a dead man, and I relieve this area up in here. I haven't built the dead man. I'm not sure how often I would have used it. It's set up for that. And you can also see one of the negatives, I think, with the Douglas fir. If you look carefully, you can see it's pretty beat up. I've dropped a lot of stuff here. Even my end here, this has been knocked down considerably. I had to ease that edge a second time when I was sanding off all the spills. because it just gets so beat up through use. Now, maybe it's the softwood, or maybe it's just, the wear and tear on a bench that's well used. One of the other things that I like is the stop gap. And you can see I have it kind of set up right now as a planing stop. Not sure how often I'm going to use that. I mean, I have a planer. But I do like it for the tool storage. And you can see there, it's really great to have your tools just sitting there. You can pick one side of the bench, and if you're a sloppy worker like me, they're rolling around all over the place, falling on the floor. You can't find what you need. So that is quite handy. And the other thing that I like about it is to be able to just kind of get it out of the way here, and you can clamp in the middle of your bench, right in this area. And you can take it out clearly and do it anywhere along the bench. But I only have one hand. I'm using the camera for the other hand, so that's not going to work for me. So but you get the idea. That really does work out quite well. And then in most cases, it's just going to sit just like so. And so I don't know if there's much else to talk about. I think one thing I will say with my leg vise, I tend to use it in that configuration more than anything. I tend to use my metalworking vise more so than the leg vise. And the beauty with this vise is there's no parallel guide, there's no nothing. I just open and close it. My screw has 2 threads per inch, but I use this more so than anything. And I do use these guys quite a bit. You can see I made them out of eucalyptus, which is very hard. I got a little spring on it, so these guys will set at whatever height. But not only to secure pieces of wood to work on, which I don't plane that often, but you're going to sand things, you do things. But I also clamp tools in there. I have a little bandsaw that I might clamp in there, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes I'll even clamp the belt sander in there upside down and just flick it on, and I have this sort of stationary sander I can use. And let's see, down here, this is the non-traditional part of the bench. This is actually oak flooring from a house that we built. It was left over. It's T&G. I just cut it and dropped it in there, but it just made such a nice base. I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. So I don't know if there's that much else to talk about. It's a basic traditional Roubo style workbench. Has very little metal hardware on it, and it's gotten a whole lot of use. And I really like the bench, and I'm really happy with the build, even though it was done over a long period of time. So hopefully you guys get something out of that. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.